Washington Journal continues.
And we are back with the co-authors of a new book, What Women Really Want. Gina Loudon, who is the co-author of the book, along with Anne-Marie Murrell, is also the co-author of the book and the editor-in-chief of Politichicks.tv. Thank you both for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Gina Loudon, let me begin with you.
Sure.
So let's take the title of the book, What
Yes.
Women Really Want. So what do women really want?
Well, obviously, it took a whole book to talk about it because women, we are a little complicated. You know, we thought about writing the What Men Really Want, and it was just going to be such a short pamphlet that we decided we'd go with the women, but we really did. We talk to women all the time because we have a national organization that gives women a voice, and we ask women all the time to engage. And so in the process, in the political process, because we think that the things that really do matter to women are things that they can personally affect by being active in what happens in the political realm. And a lot of women don't want to, so we wanted to look at the objectives, the objections. Why don't women get involved? And we wanted to try to be a conduit to saying, hey, go ahead, it's okay, you can do this. Women can make a huge difference in politics.
Well, why do you want women to get involved? What's going on here? What do you see that's going wrong?
Democrat women pretty much have always been involved in politics. I think it's a strange dichotomy that Democrats, when they vote, they don't just vote. They also stay involved. They stay committed to their causes. Republican women and men, most of the time they vote, they go home, and they don't think about it till the next election. So there's a lot of stuff that happens in between an election and the next election. So we just try to encourage everyone to just be involved and know what's happening in your world.
Is this book about feminism, Gina Loudon?
I think it depends on how you define the word feminism. In our book, What Women Really Want, we found out that women really want to talk about what it means to be feminine. You know, we're kind of coming to grips with the fact there are some differences between men and women. And even though certain people out there want to say, well, no, there's not really a difference between men and women, there is. Women do think differently than men, and men do think differently than women. So we wanted to have that conversation in our book, and we wanted to talk about how men and women can speak to one another, and how women from one side of the aisle can come across the aisle and have a civil discourse without being crass or harsh or demeaning to one another. So that's another big part that we tried to include in the book.
Anne-Marie Murrell, do you think that Democrats talk about it in a wrong way, in a different way?
I think Democrats talk about it, period. And that's important. Republicans, the words silent majority, I think, were really damaging to the Republican Party because they didn't use their voices. I think that they allowed politicians to speak for them. And I personally don't want any politicians speaking for me and about what my needs are in my home, in my family, in my life. And the only way to get through to the politicians is to be involved and to be vocal. And if you don't like something, do something about it. Don't wait for someone to do it for you.
Are there specific public policy measures that you're endorsing here, that you're encouraging women to get involved in?
I think women really love freedom, like on a very basic level. Freedoms to worship who they want to worship, freedom to raise their families, freedom to protect themselves in a culture that doesn't allow women to be very safe all the time. So we really spoke to freedom issues in this book and found out that those issues of freedom for faith, family, those are really paramount to women. And so this is where there's just a great opportunity for women to kind of have this conversation and assert their voice into the political system. Remembering always that, you know, I'm the wife of a former state senator, and he knew that he worked for the people. That was never lost on him for a moment because I reminded him. And so one of the things we want to do to women is make sure they understand that the people in that building over there, they work for you. And that women need to be completely willing to actively engage in the campaign processes to get the people elected that they want, and then to hold them absolutely accountable. And in our book, What Women Really Want, we gave a roadmap to exactly how women can do that, even with their busy lives, even while they're running the kids to soccer, even while they're sitting in the boardroom in their meeting, the things that they can do to fit it into their life so that they do have that voice.
What is the roadmap?
It's a lot of things. We talk about grassroots activism, party platforms are really important. And a lot of people kind of overlook that party platform as like, something that they care about in party politics. And a lot of people don't like labels. And we don't like labels. We have a whole chapter in there talking about labels. And I tell a very personal story about my dad, who comes from a exact opposite political perspective than me, and how we love each other through that. But if we let society apply those labels to us, we would hate each other. And it's a really important part of the conversation that we wanted to have. But one of the things that we think is really important is that, if women would take an active role in their grassroots politics, regardless of party, they'd have a lot more control. And then once those politicians that they helped were elected, if they'd hold their feet to that party platform, make the party platform what you want it to be. Nobody gets to dictate that, but hold them to it.
Anne-Marie Murrell, you write in here that when you ask conservative women today what they want, they will tell you they want real men. And you break it down by paragraph in here. Men who will advance their economic prosperity. What are you talking about? With what policies?
We don't want to completely rely on men. We don't want them to be a million miles above us. We don't want to be a million miles below them. We want to be as equal as we can be as men and women who are unequal in many ways. And we'll always be unequal. We're never going to be on the same level with men and women. We just aren't in many ways. And that doesn't have to mean economically. If we both work in an office and I'm doing the same job as you, if you're a man and you're beautiful and you're not, I do expect to get the same pay as you. If I'm working in construction, if he can haul 400 pounds of bricks and I can't, I'm okay with him being paid more. There can be equality in the workplace, but in some workplace, it depends on where the workplace is and what career path you choose.
Are you saying Democrats have a different message on that?
Oh, no, I don't think so. Not at all. I think that we should all want the same thing. There's so many things that we all really actually want. If we broke it down to the basics, Democrats and Republicans are very similar in a lot of ways. Probably more than most by both sides would even want to admit.
Gina Loudon, you go on to say in the book, men who aren't afraid to let them think for themselves, men who will do their own jobs. Why the focus on, when you say what women really want, and then say real men? Why the focus on men?
We talk to a lot of men for this book as well, and I have found that men are confused about what women, they are really confused. And we found that a lot of the people who buy our book are men who they want to know what women really want,
and they think that it should be a lot bigger, like
an encyclopedia. And then they said once they finished reading it, we'd probably change the book anyway, as far as what women really want. So we had a lot of fun with the conjecture. But there's a very serious matter here, in that the role of men and women is evolving in our culture, and that I think we need to be really aware and willing to kind of, take off the facade and the things that society has imposed on us. I think some of the things from the era of feminism, if you will, haven't given women the freedom that they originally perhaps intended. They've said you must work and you must put family on the back burner. Well, we're here to say, no, we really think that you can have it all. But there is a policy difference. I know you asked Anne-Marie that question about the difference between Democrats and Republicans. To me, there is a policy difference. See, we don't agree on everything all the time. And I know that she agrees with me too, but I wanted to clarify. I do think that often the approach from Democrats is to have government do it for you, have government impose the policy on you, where the Republican perspective is often to, the free market, let the free market reign, let the free market be miraculous, because we believe it is. And so when, I work in a male-dominated industry like you do. I'm a broadcaster as well. And so I work with all men. My office is all men. There's one other woman in the office, and we just kind of duck and cover. But I will say that there is some disparity in our industry for men. You know this and I know this. But I decided to compete anyway. I could go to an industry where women are dominant. Teaching is one of them. Nursing is another. I could go to one of those industries and there would be no pay disparity. I don't want our government to tell me that it's going to make things equal for me. I'm willing to make things equal, and I believe that I can compete in the arena, and that's another thing that we really try to encourage women to do, because we don't believe women need handouts.
Well, let's get to phone calls here. We're talking with two of the three authors of the book, What Women Really Want, Anne-Marie Murrell and Dr. Gina Loudon, here with us this morning for about another half an hour. We'll go to Laura first in Erie, Pennsylvania, Republican caller. Hi, Laura, go ahead.
Hi, good morning,
Morning.
ladies. I'm a conservative woman, and I just wanted to say I'm glad. I hope your book is successful in getting women involved. I do want to bring up the point, though. I do think the parties have completely different agendas, and on many issues you can't talk civilly. Choice is one of those. Abortion is, like Rush Limbaugh says, a sacrament to the left. Being pro-life is just one of the highest priorities for most conservative women I know. When it comes to conservative social values, especially, you get into agendas like balanced budgets. Conservative women want the federal government to balance their budget like they have to in their households. And I'm wondering, did you guys cover the benefits of marriage in your book? Because it is so protective for individuals and for society. It's the number one anti-poverty tradition that is in this country. It drops the probability of child poverty by 82%. People coming from fatherless households have much more criminal behavior, much more school dropout rates. So traditional families do make societies healthy, and I hope you covered that in your book. Good luck.
Gina Loudon, I'll give that to you because you're a doctor of psychology. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. And we do, again, I don't mean to speak for Anne-Marie, but I'm pretty sure we agree that some of these words, again, they've been used as weapons and labels to divide. We talk a lot in the book about how it has become a culture of sort of we the people versus they, the elite, imposing their view. The thing about the social issues that we do speak to extensively in What Women Really Want is that we realize that there really aren't a lot of social issues that are social issues. That's sort of another misnomer label. It truly is. Take, for example, abortion. You brought that up, so I'll address it. $1.5 million every day spent on abortion. That's taxpayer money. I call that a fiscal issue. I don't know, but to me, if we're spending $1.5 million every day on something, that's a fiscal issue. So I don't want to take that label that this is a social issue that should be ignored. To me, this is a fiscal issue. Now, are there issues of life that we can talk about here as well? Constitutional rights? Most certainly. And we absolutely, in fact, in the back of our book, you would enjoy this specifically. We have the Declaration of Independence, we have the Bill of Rights, very integral, as you know. We have the Gettysburg Address. We have Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. So we tried to be very comprehensive and give women and men who read our book truly a resource and a way that they can literally make a life plan for their activism.
Anne-Marie Murrell, this is a Kaiser Health poll taken before the Supreme Court made their decision about the ACA's requirement for contraceptive. And it said that the majority support contraceptive coverage requirement. They broke it down by men and women. 65% supported the ACA's law that required companies to provide contraceptive coverage.
I don't think we have a problem with contraception, with birth control, as much as we don't want to pay for someone's abortion. That's my personal opinion about that. I don't want to pay for something I don't believe in. I don't believe that and I wouldn't want anyone else to pay for something that they don't believe in. If someone doesn't believe in, if the government were to give free guns and someone is anti-gun, I wouldn't want them to have to pay for my gun as well. When I say that there's not a lot of difference, please don't think that I mean there's not a lot of difference morally, socially, environmentally between Democrats and Republicans. There are major differences, but when you break it down to saying choice, they want choice. So do we. We may want different choices, but we want choice. We believe in our First Amendment rights. We believe in freedom of speech. We do too. We don't want to be fired for our jobs for being Republicans. And we live in California, and it happens.
So you're saying you respect the decision by some women to have an abortion, that that's their choice?
Well, I'm not saying that either.
Okay.
I don't want to pay for it. I'm not going to eliminate abortion from the world, but I don't want to pay for it. That's my choice.
And I think that there's something really demeaning to me, you know, about saying that women can be bought so easily, that we can be placated by, I don't know what it costs, $15 a month in free birth control. Most women realistically can afford that or make decisions to protect themselves in other ways. So I don't know, I don't want to reduce women to a $15 a month payoff so that they'll vote for a certain party. To me, that's just humiliating. And I think women are better than that, stronger than that. And if we want to lobby for something, let's lobby for more freedoms. Let's lobby for more equality. But to lobby for birth control and spend all this money and time and dialogue on something that isn't really that expensive, you know, how about open the Keystone Pipeline and get our gas prices down? That I'll talk about. You know, those things make more sense to me than getting all upset over birth control. It's pretty affordable to begin with.
The phone lines are lighting up, so I'll go back to them. Amy in Shellsburg, Pennsylvania, Democratic caller. Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
Morning.
Good morning. I agree with the women. I must be a very conservative Democrat because I believe if you're going to lay down and do something and have it and try to have an abortion, I don't think I have to pay for it. Personally, morally, that's wrong in my eyes. And if you want to do things like that, being married, go get married before you do something, and I shouldn't have to pay for someone's contraceptive. That's my opinion, and I'm a Democrat.
Okay. All right, Amy.
And Democrats and Republicans, we're not so different because I'm a gun-carrying, free-talking woman, and I agree with everything these women are saying.
Where do you live?
I live in gun-carrying Pennsylvania. So.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
I'm curious, if I can ask you, do you
I'm
mind?
so sorry.
You just cut her off.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so curious.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do
again,
that.
this is where those labels are so important. I'm curious why she considers herself a Democrat or a Republican. I like to ask those questions, but I love that she is talking about issues instead of labels. Identify with the party you want. I don't care what party you identify with, as long as you engage and talk about the issues instead of about the people, you know, insulting the other people in the other party, and instead of just kind of passively being like, I don't want to listen to you because I label myself this. To me, that's ignorant. And I think what she said is so important and so vital to women that we have to be above just asking for handouts. If you really believe in the integrity of women and the strength of women, and you really want equality, then asking for free stuff just doesn't make sense. And one other thing on that, if I can quickly say, when you subsidize something, you get more of it. It's just the rules. It's just the way, economics 101, you learn that. So if we are going to subsidize more sex outside of marriage, if that's really our goal, more fatherless families, so on and so forth, we're going to get more of it. So that's always a question we have to ask ourselves too. No matter how good the offer, is it something we want more of before we spend money on it?
Let me go to David in Indianapolis, Republican caller. Hi, David.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Morning.
Good, how are you?
Morning. Good. My comment was just kind of along the lines of I really worry about women because I think that the average woman is better off with a husband and children. It's what I don't see also. I don't see women hop skipping into work because I think most work sucks. And and I worry about women. I think that someone like Michelle Duggar is probably the second safest woman in America. And I worry that a lot of women will end up dying like Shula Firestone, who was an early feminist, who died by herself with no food in the house and was lionized after her death by women who were not there to help her, pass to the other side. So that's my comment.
Okay, David. Anne-Marie Murrell, go ahead.
Yeah, I was a single mom for many years, and they were the most difficult times of my entire life. And I felt so guilty all the time, having to leave my little boy, sometimes with daycare play. I hate to even say this. I'm sorry, Jason, wherever you are. Having to leave him in kind of questionable daycare. I didn't have family that was helping me. At the time, I didn't have child support. I had to fight for that. It was so difficult, and I can't really cook, so I don't even know how my son survived those years, and now he's a great cook, I think out of necessity. It is so difficult to be a mother when you're raising a child by yourself. The best single mom is still the worst mom, because you have to be a mom and a dad, and we're not men, and we can't do both, and children need both. I will always believe that, and I've seen it. I've seen the proof in my son, and things that are always going to be lacking in him because of what I just couldn't give him.
Gina Loudon, you write in one of the chapters that you wrote yourself, women I talk to today often say that their first love, like mine, is being a wife and mother. That is by God's own design. But today so many women must forego that dream to enter the workplace. What are you saying by using the words, it's God's own design?
Well, it's interesting because we read a lot of polls of women talking about if they could just paint their picture of exactly what they wanted, that they consider it a luxury, and that they aspire, about 80% of women aspire to have the ability to stay home. Women who are mothers and who are in the workplace, they desire to have that. So if women can have that for at least a period of time while they want that, then women should speak up about that, and our culture should be fighting for that right too, because a woman's job at home is every bit as important and every bit as difficult as her job in the workplace. So it should be about what she wants, not about what society wants to tell her she should want. So that's part of the voice we really try to carry in what women really want. And I don't care how you look at men and women, we have differences. Women can have babies. So far, men still can't. But you know what? We don't look at that as a burden. And we don't even, in my book, you know what? If I get to take a nice long maternity leave and I make less that year, that's worth it to me. Those hours with my children, and I have 5 of them, are worth every penny that I've ever lost in the workplace. To me, it's a cost-benefit analysis, and women should be free to make that choice.
We'll hear from Stan next. Broadbrook, Connecticut, independent caller.
Yes, I really think it's a good idea that the liberal woman would rather abort their families. That's less Democrats we got to worry about, and that's worth paying for. That's my comment.
Okay, we'll move on to Ron in Florida, independent caller. Hi, Ron.
Hello. I haven't read your book, but I feel I'm a progressive male, independent. Am I being heard?
Yes, you are.
Oh, thank you. I have 6 children. I was a single parent also. And I'm curious as to your book. Does it touch on the fact that women don't really know what they want? Because I found that through life, the majority, I've been married twice, the majority of women keep changing their mind. They don't seem to know what they really want.
Dead silence. We're complicated creatures. I'll admit that. I think that the rest of the ladies here will admit that too. We tend to be complicated. I don't know what I want to eat most of the time. I don't know. There are a lot of things we don't know, and we struggle through some things. But what we do know that we want, we're unwavering. My principles, my family, I will lay down my life and die for all of them if I ever needed to. So what we know we want, we're unwavering. You can't budge us on things that are really important. Things like food. I think I want Mexican today, but I'm not positive.
We'll go on to Bert, Columbus, Georgia, independent caller. Hi, Bert.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Morning.
Doing well.
Hey, listen, y'all the kind of women that men love to love. I'm going to tell you, real men, you know. My wife, my point is this. When I was hurt in 91, had a back operation, and I had to have another in 95, so I couldn't work since then. And my wife worked. She worked for 20 years at a trucking company. She ran the office, and she was very good at it. And what she wanted out of me was the house clean, the dinner cooked, our son, you know, clean and everything. And I was just wondering, do y'all have something in the book to talk about when the woman has to work and the man has to stay home?
That's a freedom question. It's a very basic freedom question, and kudos to you for just graciously accepting that role, and kudos to your wife for stepping up and accepting her role. That's what life is all about. That's what freedom is all about, and that's why in the book, What Women Really Want, we try to really address that freedom issue, to kind of pause and think before you have government involve itself in your life, because thank goodness there's not a law, for example, that you know, that situation that you encountered has to go a certain way. It should have been able to go however it is you and your wife determined it should go. And that's why that freedom quotient has to be about the number one question. When my husband was in the Senate, he would always call it the freedom litmus test. He would say, if there's a bill before me, I think about whether it's going to give more freedom or less freedom, and I go with that. And I love that, and I never have forgotten that he said that.
Dave is watching us in Utah, independent caller. Dave, you're on the air.
Yeah, I think, what everybody's looking for is love. And it would be really nice to know what your guest thinks. What is love? There's a lot of distractions out there, politics, Democrats, Republicans, independents. But at the end of the day, I think we're all just looking for love. So maybe they can expand on what that means.
Okay, all right. Who wants to tackle that?
Are you a father?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you wanted to.
Okay. Well, for me,
Ask him a question.
As soon as I gave birth, for me, I understood what love was. And my husband, I was remarried. My husband is a rock. He's the rock when I'm the balloon that floats away a little bit. We complement each other. That to me is love. It's never perfect. Sometimes it's difficult. A lot of times it's difficult, but it's what keeps me going.
I love that question. I am so glad you brought that up, because we do address that directly in What Women Really Want. We talk about love of God, love of country, love of family, love of freedom. We also talk, though, about that sometimes love is tough. Like, just because you agree with someone doesn't mean that you need a government policy to gift that person something, right? Because sometimes the best thing you can do is say no, is say that's a really bad idea. I'm not sure you want that government intrusion in your life. I'm a homeschool mother of 5 amazing, adorable children who taught me everything I know about love, for sure. But I can tell you that there was a bill in the Senate that gave money to homeschoolers, and I thought, how great, because I'm paying all these taxes for the public schools, and what I'd really like to have is a little bit of help buying all these expensive school books, right? And another mother came to me and she said, you don't want that. That is not the role of government. If you choose to take your children home, yes, it's a sacrifice. It might be a good thing. That doesn't mean that taxpayers need to foot the bill for your choices. Taxpayers don't. So sometimes love is tough. And if we take a look at cultures within our own country, and we look at how we've subsidized single-family homes, for example, and what that has done economically and even socially to those cultures that we have subsidized, it hasn't been a gift. It truly has not been a gift. And so sometimes love has to be very tough.
Speaking of policy and choices that both parties make, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, as you know, who heads up the Democratic National Committee, wrote a piece recently in Politico magazine about the autopsy that Republicans did after the 2012 election. And she notes that polls show Republicans have not moved the needle since then with women. And she writes this: the GOP's autopsy, trainings, and memos made one thing very clear. The party does not understand that its problems with female voters has nothing to do with presentation, rhetoric, or outreach. The problem has always been Republican policies. Policies that prevent us from moving closer to equal pay for women, policies that would make it more difficult for women to exercise their right to vote, policies that would allow insurance companies to discriminate against women, and policies that would allow politicians and employers to get involved in medical decisions that belong between a woman and her doctor.
Yeah, and I think once again that it's a matter of Republican women haven't needed or haven't felt the need to get involved. They allowed the men in their lives to kind of take that role for them. But I do think that women are finally waking up on the Republican side, and they're realizing that if they want to take control, they can't wait for someone to do it for them. So the voices are starting to rise up. And with Politichicks, our website, we've got women across the United States that write for us. They're activists. They're getting involved locally. They're learning, and it's daunting at first when women find out what they need and how to get that. But because they think it's so huge. Politics is enormous. It's difficult to know everything. Well, you don't have to know everything. Zero in on what you need and work on that. But it is a matter of we're doing some catch up. Women are trying to let the politicians know, though, that they need to be heard, and they've been quiet for too long.
But I want to say, she is dead wrong on what she said about it being policy. Many things, if you just read the platforms, just read the Republican Party platform. We talk about this in the book. It's a chapter called Platforms and Stilettos, because we think that if women really take a look at the grassroots level, at the actual platforms of the party, it's not a policy problem. It is absolutely a publicity problem. The GOP leadership, and Anne-Marie and I, and Morgan, our co-author, we completely concur on this in what women really want. We are really tired of the GOP elite thinking that they can just cower in the corner every time they're confronted. We want strong leaders. I don't care if they're men or women, that makes no difference to me, but we want them strong, and we want them outspoken, and we want them not afraid to stand. And we don't want them to worry so much every time about licking their finger and sticking it in the wind and saying, ooh, somebody's gonna get mad. You know, things like the debt ceiling, for example, the Republicans cower on it every time. Ooh, we had to shut down the government, we got some bad publicity. Then stand by your decision that you made in the first place. Look, all they had to say, American families, do you not have to pay your bills? Well, guess what? So does the government. And we're really sorry that it might be painful sometimes, but don't you cut costs? We have to too.
Okay, we'll go to David in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Democratic caller. David, you are on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't like the idea of other people saying what my daughter or my ex-wife or whatever can do with her uterus. I'm sick and tired of that. It's our family dynamic. We get to decide. If my daughter decides that she doesn't want to have the baby, that's her decision. She gets to decide that. The idea that the government has to make a rule about uteruses is totally against freedom.
Okay. Anne-Marie Murrell.
I just don't want to pay for it. I don't want to pay for your daughter's abortion with 1 penny of my tax dollar. You can believe in that. I don't, so I don't want to pay for your daughter's mistake. And I hope that never happens. I really do.
Columbus, Ohio. Sharon, Democrat.
Yes, I'm listening to these women. They are talking for all women. I'm proud to say they cannot speak for me. They're saying that, oh, the government should not pay for your abortion. We're not asking the government to pay for your abortion. What we are saying is that just like how they pay for men, but the government should not help. Where were they when they had the suffrage? Was it the government who helped women? They're talking for not all women. They're not talking for me. I work in a child care center, and I see what happens. If a woman makes over 25 cents over what they're supposed to have, child care is taken from them. Look at what's going on in this economy. I am tired of people coming on and speaking for women, all women. I am a black woman. I see you guys going through the same thing that I'm going through. So I think that you guys have to do a little bit more research when you're talking about women broadly. You're talking about abortion. I'm from a different country. Back then, if they don't have it right, let me say this, they will find a way to have an abortion. You guys have money, so okay, we don't believe in abortion. People who have money will find a way to have it. But women, there's one case right now. The young lady has 2 children. One of them has a challenge. She don't want to have another baby. Guess what happened? The doctor says, well, we cannot do the abortion for you. Now she's stuck with 3 children, and she is unsubsidized.
Okay, all right. Gina Loudon, I'll have you jump in.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. This is one of the things we talk about a lot in the book, What Women Really Want, and that is tolerance of other people's opinions. So we certainly don't mean to speak for every woman in America, nor would we. But I think that this lady didn't sound very tolerant of what we believe, and we believe that is one of the fundamental problems about women's engagement in the process is that we get angry, we can't have a civil discussion, kudos to you, because that's what you do on your show every day. But there needs to be more of that, just even-tempered. Can we please keep our emotions out of this for a moment, or then we just become the emotional women that the male-dominated society that the feminists always talk about wanted to label us? I think we can have an intelligent conversation without insulting one another and without being intolerant of one another's views, even if they're really different from us. Now, speaking specifically, I happen to think that there are children in society that end up unwanted, especially if abortion is not subsidized with our $1.5 million every day. But I also hope to speak a little bit with keep my walk in line with my talk. I adopted a child with Down syndrome who at one point was slated for abortion. And I don't say that to brag, because he is the biggest blessing ever. It's not me blessing him. It is definitely him blessing our family and everyone that he meets. But I really am glad that his mother made the choice to give him the opportunity at life. I believe it's a fundamental thing. It's just a difference in perspective on constitutional rights. But I believe my son had just as much a right to be born as anyone, even though he does have Down syndrome. And he's been a huge blessing. And you know what? I learn a lot from him. So to just disregard, children with Down syndrome, now more than 90% of them are aborted. I have a great big problem with that. And I have a walking example in my life of why that might not be the best choice for all women. But if you can't raise that baby, I waited on a waiting list of 300 families to adopt my child with Down syndrome. There are families waiting for these children. Give them up for adoption.
Rita, Tampa, Florida, Republican caller. Rita, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. I just want to say thank you so much, and the other lady for writing this book. I really appreciate it. But Anne, you almost brought tears to my eyes, because I too have been a single mom for almost 19 years, and you're right. It has not been easy at all. Not a whole lot of support, from family. There were times when I just put my hands up and said, God, if you don't help me, I can't make it. But almost 19 years later, here I am. He just started at UCF 3 weeks ago, and it's been just by the grace of God. So I just want to say thank you for telling your story, because it is very difficult. But, one thing I do want to say that, as an African-American woman, I chose to lay down and have that child. I knew that I was not married. I believe in the principles of God, but at that time, I didn't follow them. So when you don't follow the principles of God, which is a man, a woman, married first, then comes the children, we have to all suffer the consequences. And to think that you can just, go to the doctor and get a quick fix, that's not going to take care of the issue, because mentally and emotionally, those things and what you've done to your body and that you've taken an innocent life, it's going to stay with you. And so, the caller before us, I understand the plight, but here's the problem. When you look back to see these women with 2, 3, and 4 children, first of all, they're not married. And that lies, that wherein the issue lies. When God said family, he meant husband, wife, and then the children. But we've thrown God out, and now we think that we can do this all on our own. It's time for us to get back to the original plan of God and the original plan of marriage, one man, one woman for life. I want to say thank you, ladies, for bringing out this book. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
All right, Rita.
God bless you,
All right.
too.
God bless you.
Anne-Marie?
Oh, man, you just spoke to my heart. I want to talk about the caller before, too.
Sure.
Because I sometimes worked 3 jobs. I'm not wealthy to this day. I hope to be someday. I have no problem with making money. It was never easy, and I wrote about it in our book, What Women Really Want, but I lived it. It was so hard, and there was so much guilt involved, but it never occurred to me personally to even get on food stamps, and I know I qualified. I know this for a fact. Now I know. It just never even entered my mind to ask anyone else for help, because I had 2 arms, 2 legs. I could work, and I did. I did everything I could to keep us as strong and independent and healthy as I humanly possibly could. And no, it's not ever easy. Life was never supposed to be just easy.
And it isn't. My background's in psychology, as you know, and during my first master's degree, I worked the entire time as a post-abortion counselor. And I can tell you, what abortion does to women is the best kept secret in this country. Women are very traumatized by abortion. This doesn't mean every woman, but you can't know. It's rolling the dice when you go in for that abortion, whether your life is going to be ended because of that abortion. For sure, one person's dying that day. But it's very often the case that women, and not only does it end up with suicide and drug abuse and other things, relationships end over it, even when the abortion was performed for the sake of the relationship, but it also ends up with repeat abortions. And that's very unhealthy. We're learning now about the health consequences of abortion, and it isn't a good thing. It's the woman's body is not made to have that pregnancy interrupted. And so I have great compassion for those women that I worked with during that time in my life where I was still undecided on some of these kinds of issues. And I see the faces of those women. And I believe women have been sold a pack of lies. And I believe it goes back to what we've been talking about this whole time, Greta, and that is that women have not been empowered verbally to say, you can do it. What Anne Marie's saying about the food stamp thing. Somebody told her she was going to get through that time. But our message from media and our message from culture and our message, frankly, from Washington, D.C. often is, you can't do it. Let us take care of it for you. We want that message to end. We are not asking. We really believe in strong, independent women who can make it. And when they can't, we believe that's what charity is for.
As we wrap up here, I want to have you both answer this question. Who do you see as the future of the Republican Party, men or women, that fit within what you've written about here in this book?
Good question.
Anne Marie?
Boy, that's tough because there hasn't been a lot of really strong leaders in the Republican Party lately. I love Ted Cruz. I'm a seventh-generation Texan. My ancestors came over 3 years after the Alamo. I've lived in California most of my life, though. I love Ted Cruz. I love his strength. I love his independence. Louis Gohmert is from my district in Texas. He's one of those feisty guys who isn't afraid to back down on any issue. He's fearless. Mike Lee. There are some really good ones, but right now,
any women?
Oh my gosh,
Gina?
Yeah. There are. Whoopsie.
There are some great women, and I for president,
Nikki Haley.
For president especially, I personally choose not to inject yet, but I will say this. There is no way I will sit idly by this time and let the Republicans nominate another cram them down your throat, establishment, dynasty type candidate like we've had. I think they've had their time. I think they've had their runs. I think it's time for a true maverick, someone who will stand up to the establishment. And I am hoping and praying that this time around we can find that person who's going to be about we the people instead of about they the elite, they the lobbyists, they the political body in the Capitol building. So that's what I'm looking for in a candidate. And the first one I find, I will jump on board hardcore. But they have to declare first before I can decide who I want for president.
All right. Well, for more from these ladies, you can, of course, go to politichicks.tv and their book, What Women Really Want. Thank you both for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
What a
us.
fun time.
Yeah.
Up next, we're going to open up the phone lines and get your thoughts on where we began earlier today. What should President Obama do about this threat coming from the so-called Islamic State and Russia's aggression against Ukraine? We'll be right back.
It's 9:32 a.m. Eastern Time. An update on the news for you. Payroll processor ADP says private employers added 204,000 jobs last month. It's the fifth straight month of solid gains. Job gains above 200,000 a month are usually enough to lower the unemployment rate. The figures suggest that the government's jobs report to be released tomorrow will also show a solid increase, but the ADP numbers cover only private businesses and sometimes diverge from the government's more comprehensive report. And the U.S. trade deficit fell in July to its lowest level since January as exports of autos, telecom equipment, and industrial machines, also semiconductors, rose. The Commerce Department says the trade deficit fell 0.6% in July to a seasonally adjusted $40.5 billion from $40.8 billion in June. Both imports and exports rose in July, pointing to the possibility of stronger economic growth in the second half of 2014. And overseas, the European Central Bank says it will start a new stimulus program. It involves buying financial assets to salvage a weak economic recovery. The announcement came after the ECB said it had cut 2 key rates today. The action underlines the bank's determination to keep Europe's weak recovery from going into reverse. And those are some of the latest headlines on C-SPAN Radio.